So when we talk about with our kids, what are we laying aside? What does it mean when we actually, like, we don't just teach them the music and say, good, now you've sung this great song. It's hymnography. It's music and text married together to teach us. And so we then talk about, what does it mean to lay aside our earthly cares? What are we laying aside? What are the things that are holding us back? What are the things that are bogging us down? And there's no such thing as camp vespers. There's vespers.
Sounds fantastic.
Let me tell you what youth choirs don't look like.
Okay.
First is, it's not a performance. It's not, we're going to learn one communion hymn and parade the kids down to the front of the church where the choir doesn't even stand to sing one communion hymn in the middle of a church service so that everyone can take out their phones and take pictures of how cute the kids
are. Hey everyone, so excited to have you with us. Welcome to Ethos and Yphos. My name is Christian Faraj, and I am so happy and honored to welcome Deacon Greg Abdalah with us today.
Hello.
Hi, Deacon Greg.
How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Great.
I'm really excited to sit down with you, especially because of our topic today. When we want to talk about our youth's role in the music of the Orthodox Church. And we think you're the perfect person to do that. So we're so grateful to have you.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Deacon Greg, for our audience, if you don't know, is the Pastoral Assistant at St. George Antiochian Orthodox Church in Phoenix, Arizona, as well as the Assistant Professor of Pastoral Theology at St. Vladimir Orthodox Seminary, and focused on youth ministry, correct?
Yeah, that's right. My class in the Doctor of Ministry program is Christian Education 510, which is a fancy way of saying I talk about youth ministry all the time.
That's fantastic. And you've done youth ministry for the majority of your life, or been involved in it, whether that's been in the camping program, in parish life. I know you have experience as well within the Antiochian Department of Sacred Music in a few different areas, but especially with your work with the youth music ministry.
Yeah.
I think you're the perfect person to have this conversation with.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here and honored.
The honor is really mine. So thank you. Let's have a conversation. I'm
love
excited.
it. I am too.
Let's do it. Let's talk about you to start, though, with your background. You grew up in the church, and I'm sure that had an impact on how you led your life and how you carried out your ministry. So do you want to talk a little bit about your experience growing up in the church and how that influenced where you are today in the ministry?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of been a fun little journey. My dad has been an Orthodox priest since 1978, and I was born in 82. So they were, full-time in a parish, and we lived in a fun house that was attached literally to the back of the church. There were two doors, one that led down a large flight of steps into the church hall, and the other door led right next to the proskymidi table in the altar from the living room.
You were right there.
We were right there. So that, in my mind meant like the church was really part of our house in many ways. And when your dad's the priest, he's serving the services, and my mom was singing in the choir. So, thank God there were people in the parish that were awesome and always would help them with my brother and I. And when it was just me, I, before my brother was born, I went up to the choir loft one day, and I was just about 3 years old, and I guess I was making too much noise in the opinion of the choir director, who thought that he was directing at Carnegie Hall. He was not. It was St. George, New Kensington, Pennsylvania. And we'll call him Joe because that's his name. And Joe asked me not so politely to leave the choir loft. And I actually vividly remember that. And it kind of set me on a path because, when your dad is in the altar and your mom is in the choir, you don't have a lot of places to go. So I was trying to be with one of my parents, and Yeah. So there we go. So it's really in that moment formed a lot of ways that I approach different things regarding youth and music and, choir lofts in general. When I was the choir director here, I always had kids running around in the choir, and it's great. I really think it's fun. So it growing up in that way, like, I started chanting at a young age because I would be at Vespers, either serving as an altar boy or at the chanter stand with my mother. Um, learned Byzantine music as best as we could in the early 90s, starting around fifth grade. I remember the first time I was asked to chant Matins alone.
Mm.
I didn't know what the heck I was doing and was handed a red service book and told just do what's in the book. So I did just what was in the book. And at the beginning of the Trisagion prayers, I started with Christ is risen 3 times because that's what was in the book. And it was November. So I was greeted by multiple people coming outside to tell me, stop, stop, stop. That's not what you do. So, you learn by doing. And that's really what we learn. So that is kind of where, in many ways, like that's how I was brought up, as I learned by doing. So I think we need to share that with our youth for answering your question of how does my upbringing influence kind of my approach to youth ministry.
No, it's fantastic. I really love it. And you mentioned that your mom was the choir director as well.
She was not the choir director. Actually, that's another fun story. I, when I was in college, started directing the choir, and she was still in the choir. And I actually asked her to leave once because I thought she was talking too much during liturgy. That didn't go over well. I had to walk back to college instead of getting a ride home from my parents.
Sure.
But she was in the choir. She was not the choir director, but she was in the choir, yeah.
Beautiful. So having her there in the choir and welcoming you in to have that space for as long as that occurred, at least.
Yeah. Well, he eventually moved on and was no longer the choir director. And by moved on, I mean he moved on into the life eternal, which growth not old.
Memory eternal.
Yeah.
Well, having that as an influence, having your mom up there influencing, I'm sure, her impact on your musical journey within the Orthodox Church had that impact. And I know we've talked about before your mother's quote. If you could just share that with everyone, I think it's really special.
Yeah, like I was getting my master's, and at seminary, it's we were one of the few classes that was at the end of them requiring a thesis. So I did a thesis, and I was focused on youth choirs, which is what led us to being here talking together today. And I was, hesitant. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I had a background in music. I studied music education for 3 out of the 4 years of college and ended up with a degree in vocal performance for a variety of reasons. But I was talking to my mom about it, and she said, liturgy is joy and music is joy. So why would we deny our youth that joy? And this idea of music being joy, liturgy being joy, has really resonated in my entire adult life in a variety of ways. I have a lot of fun in church. I love it. I really, as cheesy as that might sound, sometimes you might even catch, me laughing or cracking jokes in the middle of services, and people think it's because I'm being flippant, but it's really just that there's a joy that comes. We sing in the Psalms that we use as the verses for the second antiphon or the first antiphon of the resurrection. Make a joyful noise to God, all the earth. And I really think that that's something that we're called to do. And music becomes a way that we can do that. And liturgy becomes a place for us to do that. And you bring the two together, and it just is, it's a joyful experience. It's just absolutely wonderful. And my mom really, in many ways, exemplified that for me and really taught me the joy of the liturgical life, even at times when we didn't want to go. Like our church used to be across the street from a Catholic church in New Ken, and I used to threaten that I was going to go to the Catholic church, rebel against my parents if they, didn't do exactly what I wanted. But there's a joy in the Orthodox world that doesn't exist anywhere else. And the music of the church, I think, really brings that joy out, right? Like when we sing the Paraklesis, it's almost like dance music. Like there's moments where if you're doing it and you're really going, personally, I'm dancing up here the whole time that we're celebrating certain services. And there's just something beautiful about it. Or like the Evlogitaria that we sing at Orthros. That makes me want to dance.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that. I can totally resonate with that joy that we feel in the liturgical services. As we move on in your life and in your professional and academic career, especially, I think a lot of these topics start to get talked about having read both your master's and your doctoral theses. Could you talk to me a little bit about, especially when your work in your doctorate program and what that was on? I really love that term, liturgical discipleship, that you set your whole your project around.
Yeah, I think that. So where that came from and where I am now has really been a fun thought progression. In my mind, it's a fun thought progression. Other people might be like, "This is boring," but hopefully they stay with us. I really think that the Great Commission that we hear at the end of Matthew in chapter 28 becomes the lens through which youth ministry exists. And liturgical discipleship, Christ says, make disciples of all nations. And he gives 3 ways that disciples are made: baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. Lo, I am with you always to the close of the age. And those 3 elements, baptize, teach, lo, I am with you. Father Alexander Schmemann refers to baptism as the 3-part liturgy of initiation. And it's got at its core baptism, chrismation, and Eucharist. And I think those 3 things are corollaries. You've got our invitation is the baptism. When you are then responding, having then responded to that invitation, you then have to be taught what it is meaning to live that life and what you've responded to. And that's where the teaching, which is the beginning of our chrismation, right? Like we so often think as we're bringing catechumens into the church that, all right, we've catechized them and now we baptize in chrismate or however they're received into the church. And once they're chrismated, they're good. But no, that's just the beginning, right? The Orthodox life only begins at our baptism and chrismation. And we're strengthened along that journey through the Eucharist, which is present in the baptism service as well as in our divine worship, right? And our liturgical worship is predominantly teaching, but it all begins with that invitation that we hear at the beginning: come, let us worship and fall down before God our King. So liturgical discipleship is this idea that the liturgy becomes a vehicle through which we are able to live out that Great Commission. And we hear in that word, make disciples, mathitevsate, that it is an ongoing, never-ending process that we never graduate from. That's why we keep coming back to the liturgical life of the church. So in understanding this, and understanding that liturgy is joy, then youth ministry is strengthened by fully inviting and incorporating our youth into the liturgical life of the church in whatever way possible. Music just becomes one vehicle through which that liturgical life is able to be taught, right? It's why I always laugh. Like, I think I tell a story in one of my things about camp vespers. And there's no such thing as camp vespers. There's vespers. It just so happens that for so many years at many of our parishes, the kids don't experience Vespers until they go to camp. And then they come back from camp and they start asking their priests, can we do Vespers? Can we do Vespers? Can we do Vespers? Because they're used to going to Vespers every single day. And it starts to be called Camp Vespers because the youth are leading the Vespers based on what they've learned at camp. But it's not that it's Camp Vespers. It's just they're using the music that might exist in a book that is used for camp's divine services, also referred to as the camp book, right? But it's not that there is such a thing. Liturgical discipleship is that lived out, though, because they've now come and they've been changed by the liturgical life. They've been formed by the liturgical life, and they've been so moved by the liturgical life that they want to hold on to that. Because through the liturgical life and through this, what they term Camp Vespers, they feel like they're able to hold on to something that they had at camp, which is a relief from the craziness that they see everywhere else. And that's what liturgy ultimately provides us, is relief from the craziness everywhere else. So inviting our kids into that, inviting our youth into that, whether through liturgical discipleship or whatever other kind of name we want to call it, I just chose liturgical discipleship. We're able to invite them into a reality that is different than the reality of the world around them, that is freedom from some of the pressures that they have around them. And let's be very clear, they still feel those pressures, but the liturgy invites us to lay aside all worldly cares. So when we talk about with our kids, what are we laying aside? What does it mean when we actually, like, we don't just teach them the music and say, good, now you've sung this great song. It's hymnography. It's music and text married together to teach us. And so we then talk about, what does it mean to lay aside our earthly cares? What are we laying aside? What are the things that are holding us back? What are the things that are bogging us down? 90% of the surveys I did on liturgy had references to homework in school and other stuff that goes on in their lives that really pulls them back and really holds them back from fully immersing themselves. But liturgical discipleship for me is an idea where we're able to reframe for them what liturgy is doing so that they can then experience it differently.
That's incredible. That, I don't know. As you're talking, I'm thinking about this invitation that in the frame of our youth and what they're being offered, in the avenues that they can participate in, if that's Camp Vespers, if that's whatever Camp Vespers.
I really don't like the term.
I get it. That's why I used it. It's so funny to think about, but it seems like in all of those avenues that we're all given that invitation. There isn't like a special invitation that's given to the youth.
No.
And while they have different things that the world is trying to vie for their attention, right? Mm-hmm. And use it in different, trying to gain their attention in different ways. It seems like this invitation that we're all given equally, the same way, invited into the liturgy equally. Mm-hmm. Is that fair to? It doesn't seem like there's something unique.
Let me ask it a different way.
Sure.
How do children and new converts receive communion?
At the chalice.
Yeah.
Open wide.
Yeah. And how does everyone else receive communion?
The same way.
Right. So we all receive the Eucharist the same way.
Absolutely.
And the Eucharist forms us as a communal action, or forms us into a true community, mm-hmm. right? So the whole point of it all, like the reason that discipleship is so beautiful is because discipleship inherently means there is a communal relationship that is formed. You can't be a disciple in a vacuum. You have to have someone else that you are learning from. And usually there's a grouping of disciples. And there's Christ had 12, right? But that's not just unique to Christ, right? People still will talk about my students, right? So when I was in college, there was a group of us that were a small group that were all studying from the same trumpet teacher. So we had like this little unique community because we had the same trumpet teacher, right? And we were his students, or we were students of the jazz band director, right? Like we were their students. Same with my voice teacher. I still have a relationship with him because I was one of his students. He taught me, and there were others that were students with him that we all, at the very least had a shared experience because we learned from the same person. Now, what does that mean? Liturgically, it means that we're all being brought together and we're all invited into that same reality of being disciples of Christ. And Basil's liturgy makes it clear, as for us partakers of the one bread and of the one cup, right? So in a world where community is being usurped and changed and developed, and you're being told to focus on you and what you want to do and who you are and individuality, the church is teaching us to be communal, right? When all of the bread goes from the paten and is placed into the chalice, it's all distinguishable. It's indistinguishable.
Mm.
You can't tell the difference of what was what.
What was for the angels? What was for the mother?
Yeah, it's all just there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Patriarch John, when he was in Boston in 2015, started talking about the discos itself as a metaphor, as a symbol, as a reminder of what that communal life is. And it's all of us gathered around the body of Christ, right? We're all gathered together around Christ. And then we're put into the chalice all together, indistinguishable one from another, called to be the body of Christ. And that calling we call ecclesia to theou, right? That word ecclesia, just like mathitevsate, is an action that is continual and never ends. So we're continually being called together, gathered together to be the church, to be a community in a world that doesn't recognize what real community is. In a world that has all these synthetic communities that pretend and say that they're communities, but they're not actually communities. So when we invite our youth into this different reality, we're showing them a new reality. We're showing them a new way to see the world. And the liturgy gives us the glasses through which to do that, right? That's why it's so important that we keep things clear in our minds as to what's going on, and that we recognize that relationships are formed, and then out of those relationships, youth ministry is able to happen.
So what are those forms? How can we go out and we have everybody gathered as the body of Christ together? But as we've talked about, the youth have their unique struggles, each individually, but as a whole. How do we bring them into the church? How do we go out and make them feel like they have this, like help them to understand that they have this home?
So first off, we have to teach them what the liturgy is. And like I said, youth choirs can be a vehicle through which that is done because they take ownership, they take responsibility, they have a place. So often we refer to youth as the future of the church, and I don't like that because they're not the future of the church. They're the now of the church. They're here. They're not sitting and waiting, right? And when we take ourselves so seriously and we think of our choirs as being ready for these performances at Carnegie Hall as being the focal point of what we're doing in our liturgical worship, then we're limiting liturgy to performance. It's a really fun book, and I say fun. Russian church singing in the 1600s to 1700s or something by Vladimir. And in it, he tracks the development of things like choir lofts, soloists in liturgy. That's not Orthodox. Even the development within Byzantine chant, everything was choral. It was only after the empire fell and they couldn't pay for full choirs anymore that individual chanters started being a thing, right? Everything is focused on the choral. Our youth can come together and be part of that choir. It doesn't mean they all have to sing well. Doesn't mean they all have to match pitch. It's just an opportunity for them to experience what it means to be the now of the church because they have responsibilities. I had someone tell me once that not everyone is going to have a job in liturgy. And I really take exception to that because everyone does have a job in liturgy. We all have a role. We all have a place. Our job might not be formal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But our job exists nonetheless, and we have to find that role. So youth choirs become one vehicle through which that can happen, right? I have little kids.
Mm-hmm.
Another vehicle that can happen through is a younger teenager or whatever going and taking my kids, not taking my kids, but my daughter walks around the church and has those places that she just goes and hangs out because she feels comfortable with those people. But it gives my wife a little bit of a break. It gives her a moment to actually pray. Young moms are told that they're going to have 18 years before they can pray again.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Because their kids are there with them. Well, you can help them. And clergy wives have it even worse because their husbands, they're liturgical widows in the middle of liturgy. Their husbands are nowhere to be seen, right? Well, they're everywhere to be seen, just not with her. And so, this becomes an opportunity for you to have something that you're doing that's tangible.
Mm-hmm.
Youth choirs become another vehicle through that. They teach community. Choirs, by definition, teach community. And relationships are formed through that community. But it is through those relationships that need to be formed outside of that community as well that you're able to pull off those relationships within the community and build those relationships. So basically, youth ministry is all about networking. It's about making phone calls. It's about talking to everybody. But that's the church.
Mm-hmm.
The church is about networking. The church is a network. When I left seminary and when I graduated seminary and I moved to Worcester, Massachusetts, I met someone named Mark. Father Mark is a very dear friend to me, but we had nothing in common when we first met. We were told that we should meet because we had both gone to seminary and we knew a bunch of the same people. But beyond that, we had shared experiences. And that's what the church gives us. The church gives us shared experiences. And that creates networking. That creates community. Even just on the default, right? Because we had been at seminary at different times, but we knew a lot of the same people. We had a lot of the same professors. There was a default shared experience that we were then able to build on. We later found out that we also both liked the band Kiss and went to a concert together, but that's another story. We didn't know that yet. It was just the shared experiences of seminary. And the liturgical experience is a shared experience. Taking that even further, youth choirs become the vehicle through which that shared experience is blown out, and we're able to actually teach what liturgy is, so that it's not just something that our kids are going to bored because it's something that they think they always have to do. So my son is 2 years old. When I'm watching a video on Facebook, if he hears chanting, he comes running and says, "Church, church, I want to see." Right? If I start chanting extemporaneously at home, extemporaneously, is that the right word? We're going to go with it.
It
if I
sounds great.
just sing randomly at home and I start singing church music, he says, "No, Baba, no, not church. It's not time for church." But when we walk into the church, just the two of us, when no one else is there, he starts chanting. And then he tells me to start chanting, right?
That connection's made.
There's a connection that's made because of what music does with our brains. There's a whole nother, that's a whole nother discussion that we're not going to get into today because we do not have that kind of time.
It sounds fascinating.
It's absolutely wonderfully. Because the way that children learn music does things to their brain, which is why it's travesty if they take music out of their schools, right? And because music is being taken out of schools all across the board, our job in the church really fits beautifully, because when we start re-inviting them into a musical experience liturgically, it's still providing some of those benefits that you would have with music in schools, but also now giving that to the church as well.
So now when our youth are in church, they're learning and they're active as an active participant in the liturgical services.
You've
as we all
taken
are.
a place that how about we say it this way?
Sure.
Sorry to cut you off, but you're taking a place where they're told to sit down and be quiet, that they don't want to be in because they're told just sit down and be quiet. And you're giving them a voice. And church becomes a place where they can sing, where they can be expressive, where they can live the liturgical experience differently than sit down and be quiet.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so wonderful. And so now they're in that role. If we're using youth choirs as a vehicle to give them that life, that foundation, that they're receiving liturgy and they're participating in liturgy, right? What does that look like? What is it a youth choir look like? Is that a really broad question? Can I narrow that?
I would love it if you narrowed it, but I'm going to answer it broadly and then you can narrow it.
Sure.
How's that work?
It sounds fantastic.
Let me tell you what youth choirs don't look like.
Okay.
First is it's not a performance. It's not, we're going to learn one communion hymn and parade the kids down to the front of the church where the choir doesn't even stand to sing one communion hymn in the middle of a church service so that everyone can take out their phones and take pictures of how cute the kids look.
They look pretty cute.
They do look cute, and I love it, and I am one of those parents that would take out my phone and videotape my daughter beautifully. But integrate them, right? If you're going to start a youth choir, then you make it part of, I'm a firm believer that just like music should be a regular part of education, music education needs to have a place within our Sunday school programs or church school programs or whatever fancy way we want to call it, but it is what it is. And music needs to be a part of it. And what it looks like for music to be a part of it is, every day they learn a hymn. Every time they get together. And maybe you have youth choir rehearsals after Sunday school or church school or whatever you call the program, or after liturgy if you have your Sunday school program during Orthodox or whenever. But you need to have a dedicated time that they're able to sit and sing and learn the music of the church. And then you need to find a Sunday that your youth choir is the choir that Sunday. Not that they sing one or two things and everyone says, look how cute they are. We have a young man in our parish. He's second grade, and he likes to do the verses at communion. It's awesome. But he does it out of his love for wanting to do the verses at communion. It becomes a thing where everyone looks up at how cute he is and all of that stuff. But he's in the choir for the entirety of liturgy. It's not that he just goes up, stands on a podium, sings the verses, and then goes away. He's fully integrated part of our choir and does the verses as a member of the choir. And it's a beautiful thing. But you need to give ownership, not just teach it. So the way that you give ownership to a youth choir is you have them be the choir that Sunday. One Sunday a month, the youth choir sings liturgy, whatever it is, and see where it goes. You got to be deliberate about your music choices, all of those things. You got to make sure it's within a range. You're going to have the mechanics you can figure out however, but make them the choir and use music that they sing, that they know, that they're familiar with. That's why they like church at camp, is because they're all singing together. They are all the choir, right? There are some chanters that do certain things, but they are the choir.
So what does that music look like at a broadly speaking for the youth? What kind of music are they using? Do we have to make it super simple so they can follow along? What kind of music do our young people, are they more attuned to?
That depends on the age.
Okay, sure.
So as kids develop, their musical abilities are going to develop, and their range is going to increase. For my DMin project, or my MDiv thesis, excuse me, for my MDiv thesis, I specifically used a setting of the liturgy that was in Byzantine tone 4 because it's a tighter range
Mm.
than a full octave. Because if you've got little ones, they don't have a full octave yet.
How little would that be, roughly?
Kindergarten, first grade,
Okay.
in there. But you figure out what works for your group. So if your church is used to using 4-part music, you can still probably get away with that with the kids. Just don't expect it to be 4 parts all the time. So maybe you teach everyone the melody, and then you have, other people filling in, or the older kids filling in the different parts. Byzantine music lends itself beautifully, in my opinion, to youth choirs because it's repetitive at times and easy for them to recognize the individual theses that are going on that get repeated throughout certain modes that are very common, and then they're able to know what's coming. And the other key is you keep using the same music at the beginning, right? Get them used to one setting and then go on from there.
That's incredible. I think that's a fascinating way of approaching it. As your time is, you were the choir director in multiple parishes, as you've talked about.
Yeah.
How have you seen that integration happen, as opposed to, I don't know, how have the youth experienced that integration, being a part of the choir or having their time to be the choir?
Not always well.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Why so?
There's a lot of factors that play into it all, and ways that you need to, things that you need to navigate. So you gotta educate the parents to understand what's happening, what's going on, why it's important. Sometimes you have to work very closely with your priests to make sure that they're open to it, right? Some priests are not open to the idea of having youth sing as the choir that day. They want more of the performance stuff because they think that looks like this is what active youth ministry looks like. So you really have to be, it's going to be specific to your location and to your situation. Every parish is unique. And so youth ministry with youth choir specifically being integrated into the fabric and the life of that parish is going to look different based on that parish's unique personality and how they do certain things. There's not a one size fit all way to do this stuff.
Well, let's talk about this then, because as you know, as I know, as we're all experiencing in our own individual lives, I mean, we're busy people. How do we make the time for this? How do, especially the kids are with sports, with extracurricular activities, with school, of course, and all of the work that gets tied into that. How does, well, the liturgical life is one, but now you're adding all of the work that goes into, as we know very well, the kind of time and commitment it takes to learn the music of the church and to, okay, you're having it in Sunday school and they're learning it there.
Mm-hmm.
What extra time commitment is that really going to take to prepare a youth choir or to prepare the youth to be ready to be doing that sort of thing? And how can that time commitment be translated to their families as well? That was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you can't quantify it
Sure.
because it's gonna be whatever time commitment you put into it and whatever time commitment they're willing to put into it and able. And you're always going to have those families that are at every rehearsal and those families that show up just on the Sundays that you sing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the time commitment, honestly, is 5 years of sowing prepping. Let's put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
We moved to Pittsburgh from New Kensington, and we're in a parish house. And there were 2 garden beds in the backyard that hadn't been used as garden beds for years.
Mm-hmm.
My dad rented a rototiller. If you're unfamiliar with what a rototiller is or how it operates or what it does, Google it. It's fantastic, and it's totally worth the Google. The amount of work that goes into preparing the soil so that you can actually plant and be successful at planting your garden is a lot. So the time commitment starts with whoever's endeavoring to do the youth ministry.
Mm-hmm.
That's first step. So you got to be out there, you got to be doing it, and you got to know that 5 years minimum is going to be your prep.
Where's that 5 years come from?
My head.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to take you a long
Yeah.
time. It's going to, usually for youth ministry, we don't see the fruits of what we're doing for at least 5 years. There might be some immediate small wins, but the real lasting impact is 5 years down the line, which is ironic because the average lifespan in youth ministry is 3 years. But it's that preparation work. It's that laying of the foundation, planting of the seeds, and that's called education. And that education happens through relationships. You have to build relationships with the families so that they understand, right? So often we see parents as adversaries in our goals and stumbling blocks to our goals in youth ministry, rather than seeing them as co-workers that we're all striving together to work out the same goals, and we're working together for the same goals. And that is where that 5 years comes from, right? You got to prep it. You got to rototill the soil, and then rototill it again, and then rototill it again. You want to get to the really good stuff, not the hardened rock stuff. And so often with regard to this stuff, the soil has not been worked through, and it's solid, and it's a rock, and it's hard, and you're not going to be able to get anywhere with it, right? So you got to really lay that foundation, work at it. And then how often they come, if you have weekly, monthly, whatever, you just find a time. But if they see that you're committed, they will be inspired to be committed. And as they get committed, it will be a priority for them. And when it becomes a priority, that's when the time commitment actually comes. And it doesn't matter what the time commitment is. But it has to be something that we're offering that's of value, that we believe, and that we are so far behind that it becomes contagious, in my estimation.
I think so.
I don't know if that made sense or answered your question.
I think it made sense. I think it made perfect sense. I mean, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight.
No.
If I want my youth to be involved in the music ministry of the church, it's going to take time. It's going to be something where I take one step and go.
Yeah. And the other thing you have to do, and as part of preparing that foundation and taking those steps, is you've got to train your choir to be welcoming, to not kick the kids out, to not take themselves so seriously that they think they are a performing arts ensemble. The role of the choir is to lead the people, not to replace the people. The role of the chanters is to lead the people, not to replace the people. We're supposed to be all working together, singing together. And the choir just becomes the group that is leading everyone together in that singing, not doing all the singing for them, right? Our liturgical books in English say choir. And that's silly. It's people. We're all singing together. We're all called to be participants together It's all of us. It's not just a musical elite. So we have to train our choirs to be welcoming to kids so that the 3-year-old Greg Abdalah doesn't get kicked out of the choir loft. Right? Like, I would catch flack in the choir when I was a choir director for not kicking the kids out. I would be told the kids had no place in there. You should have seen it when they told me it was my kid. My kid shouldn't be up there. But that takes relationship building and education.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What does that welcoming environment look like? What do we need to be teaching our choirs so that we are building that? Because that's not always an easy thing.
No, it's definitely not always an easy thing. I think it looks like when someone comes and says the kids shouldn't be up here, I say, really? Where should they be? I think it's beautiful. Make a joyful noise to God, all the earth, even if you're off key. Right? And usually it's the singers that are the most off key that are the ones complaining that the kids shouldn't be up there. But why? Because the children are the future of the church. So if the children are in there as the future of the church, then that means that we're in the past of the church. And that means that we need to sit down. And we're supposed to be the ones telling them to sit down and be quiet. They're a reminder that we should maybe sit down and be quiet. No, it's not that. It's we're all the church. And if we're all in the now of the church, then that welcoming environment recognizes everyone's role in the now of the church and sees our youth being in our choir lofts, not as the future of the church so that choirs are preserved, but part of the now of the church so that the choir becomes a place that they are able to take ownership and see and recognize their own role within the liturgical life of the community.
As we're welcoming our kids into this world, into this ministry, where do you see that, the voice parts, if you will? Is that something where, as they're singing with the choir, they should be up there listening? They should start on ison? They should go right into the melody? What is your best approach as you see it?
In a 4-part Western choir, they should be singing with the sopranos because it's the most easily, especially when they're young. As they get older and they might know what their voice parts are, we can teach them what their voice parts are, fine. But when they're young and they're starting out, have them just stand with the sopranos and sing along, right? But they're going to sing whatever they're going to sing, right? The point is that they're there. I firmly believe that in a Byzantine setting, they should be singing melos, not ison. Ison comes later. And when you start to see that they're good, then you can teach them ison. But even ison needs to start with melos. They need to learn melos before they can learn ison, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Interesting. As we look into the future and we're laying the groundwork now, we're all really inspired and fired up by the words you're giving us. And we're looking into the future. What do you see as the resources, the innovations, the things that we need to be pushing out there to give every parish in the world the best opportunity to create this environment where the youth are welcomed with open arms into the liturgical life of the church?
Pass. I'm just kidding. I think we just need to provide resources that people can use. We need, simpler settings of music that can be taught by rote because kids learn best by hearing. So what that looks like is I'll sing the first line and then you sing it back to me. And then I'll sing the next line and then we'll sing those 2 lines together and then, moving on. That's how you teach them stuff like that. That gets harder the more complex the music is. Although the complex music is often more fun on both sides, whether it's 4-part or Byzantine. It's not always the best to achieve our goals. And so having opportunities and having that built in and having those resources available are fantastic. The other thing that's helpful is having curriculum resources for music education to be part of our Sunday school and have opportunities for that, Our camping programs usually do that well. They have some type of chanting thing that they do during morning program or whatever. How do we bring that into parish life? When we have events, we include chanting as part of the events or singing or whatever we want to call it. Let's not get hung up on terminology because our kids don't know those hang-ups and they won't learn those hang-ups unless we teach them to them. So we need to just have it be a thing that we just make a natural thing that we do. Best lesson I ever learned from my mother is that we go to church because we go to church. It's just a natural thing that we do. It's not something that we do because dad's the priest or because any of that stuff. It's just something that we do. And when we go and we do it, it's joyful. It's a happy thing. It's a nice place to be. And that welcoming environment invites everyone into that reality. So our kids and our adults, visitors, people from outside of the community, catechumens, whoever, right? Father Alexander Schmemann says something that Lent is not only a period of time for the catechumens to prepare to become Orthodox, it's also an opportunity for the parish to prepare itself to receive the catechumens. And it shifts the mindset of how we look at these things. We often just think the parish is there to train and welcome these people and prepare these people. But we ourselves need to be prepared to welcome them in. The same is true with our kids. Same is true. Like when you're having a kid, you're getting the house ready, you're getting the room ready, you're getting everything built, you're getting everything laid out with the first kid. The second kid, you just do what you do. You just pull everything out of the garage and hope it's still good. But you focus to prepare. So why would we not do that otherwise? So the resources we need are helping us to prepare so that we can actually teach and we can actually welcome. And that means we have to prepare ourselves to be welcoming. That means that as a choir director, I have to teach my choir what it means for them to be welcoming our youth into it. It means that I need to provide space for our youth to actually physically stand there, not just glare at them like, what are you doing here, right? So maybe we put a music stand lower so that the kids can actually see the music, right? Like, so that young man that does all of the verses, one of the ways that I made him feel like he was a part of things, I gave him a choir book that is just his, that he could take home with him. So when I printed new choir books, I printed one for him. I put his name on the front. I gave him his own cover, the whole bit. He's in. He used to tell me he was going to be the next choir director, right?
He still may be.
He still may be, but like, that's just one aspect of what we can do. Mm-hmm. One of your choir members is our former choir director here in the parish, and he started when he was 15. One of the sons of Antioch directed a choir when he was 15 years old, and we just gave him the reins, right? And trained him and prepared him. You should have seen how welcoming that environment was for young people to enter into the choir. That was when we had the youngest amount of people. So we need to be unafraid to teach them and then turn them loose to do it and actually do it. He screwed it all up by going to medical school, and I still will never forgive him for that. But, we need to be able to welcome them and train them. And nothing and it means that we're unafraid. So whatever resources, whatever innovations, whatever we want to call it that we need, at the core is we need to be unafraid to be welcoming ourselves. Not welcome us, but be ourselves, be welcoming of our young people. and then others will follow suit.
I think that's beautiful. I have so many other questions, but that's such a cool place to finish our conversation. But do you have any other words, any last words for our listeners? Words of encouragement, inspiration, as they go out and are doing this work?
Yeah. Make sure that everything we're doing is rooted in teaching our kids the gospel. Liturgy, youth choirs, any of it. All of it is to teach God's word. So let's not deny them those opportunities, but let's give them as many opportunities as we can. And we have everything firmly planted in that so that that becomes the core. Youth choirs are not an extracurricular activity to the liturgy. The liturgy is not an extracurricular activity to Sunday school. Our youth choirs are an extension of the sacramental life of the church that we are being taught. And it all flows from there.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Deacon Greg. I really appreciate it, this time that we could take to sit down and talk about all this interesting stuff. Thank you so much. And thank you as well to the Warrior Saints Academy, the beautiful studio that we're in here in Phoenix, Arizona, for letting us use the space. And you can go check them out at warriorsaints.org. And thank you. Thank you for tuning in. It was a pleasure to sit down with you, Deacon Greg. I hope we can do it again sometime in the future. Until then, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Ethos and Yphos, a production of Sons of Antioch Media. You can find us on the Sons of Antioch YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Sons of Antioch on social media and visit sonsofantioch.us for more information. God bless.